Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chof Tes Amud Aleph, 10 lines from the top. Previously, the Gemara brought in the name of Rabbi Ada bar Ahava to explain the machloikis in our Mishnah between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. And he explained the machloikis based on the fact that they both ascribed to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that there's noilad on Shabbos. The concept of noilad means that there was not an entity either before Shabbos or before Yontif, that now was created anew on Shabbos or Yontif. For example, if there was a Kli that was Sholem before Shabbos or Yontif, and then breaks on Shabbos or Yontif, that's called Noilad according to Rabbi Yehuda, therefore it has the designation of Muktzah. Although Rabbi Ada bar Ahava doesn't agree with that concept of Noilad, because he goes with Rabbi Shimon that Noilad is not Muktzah on Yontif or on Shabbos. Now the Gemara brings three different cases where Rabbi Yehuda argues on Rabbi Shimon in regards to Noilad. Omar Rabbi Yehuda, Omar Rav, Masikin bekelim ve'en masikin beshivrei kelim. Div Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon matir. In regards to, again, a Kli that was Sholem before Yontif, that Kli can be used to then make a fire on Yontif. Let's say a wooden Kli. If it broke, however, on Yontif, and now it's called a Shever Kli, it's Shivrei Kelim, that, says Rabbi Yehuda, is Noilad. It's now a new entity, cannot be used to then make a fire on Yontif. Rabbi Shimon argues and said it is mutter. The second case, Masikin B'tmorim, if one has dates, he can go ahead and use that for his fire. However, Ochlon ein Masikin B'garinehen div Rabbi Yehuda. However, Rabbi Yehuda says that once one ate the dates, he can no longer use then the pits for his fuel and make a fire, because the pits are now called Noilad, a new entity now on Yontif. Rabbi Shimon Mati, Rabbi Shimon argues. A third machlokes, Masikin be'egoizim. You can make a fire with egoizim, with nuts. Ochlon ein masikin b'kli poisein div Rabbi Yehuda. However, if you ate the nuts, you cannot make a fire with the klipos of those garinim, of those nuts. And therefore, the klipos are considered to be noilad. Whereas Rabbi Shimon says it's matir, it's mutter to do that. So now the Gemara says we need all three cases in order to then explain the machlokes between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda in regard to noilad. V'tzricha di'i ashmo'inin kamais. If I only had the first case of shivrei kelim, then behahi ka'amar Rabbi Yehuda mishum demikara kli v'hashter shever kli v'havalei nolad v'oser. I would think that only in that first case, when it was a kli before Yomtiv, and then it broke and Yontif, then that's when Rabbi Yehuda says that indeed it's a problem of noilad. Aval tmorim demikara garinin v'hashter garinin. But in regards to then the case, second case of Tamarim, of dates, since the Garinim existed before Yontif, only after he ate the date, Rabbi Yehuda now says it's Noilad. I might think that here it would not be Noilad. He would agree with Rabbi Shimon that it's not Noilad because the pits were already there. Kamash Malan, he says no. Since the pits were there to then keep the dates fresh before Yontif, and now after he eats the dates, so he's left with the pits that don't have that usage, it's considered to be noilad according to Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore it's also now a problem of muktzah and cannot be used for your fire. V'ashmoin and garinim, and if I only heard the case of garinim, the third case, then hava amina, I might have thought to say the mi'ikara mechasyon v'hashta miglion, that initially when it comes to that which is covered up and now is revealed, like the case of the pits, that's where Rabbi Yehuda says there's a problem of noilad. Aval klipe egoizim demikara miglu v'hashta miglu ema shapir dami. But in the case of the nuts, where the cover of the nuts, the klipos of the nuts, the peels, the outer layer of the nuts, which always was there and which has always been seen, so there, maybe Rabbi Yehuda would agree that that's not a problem of noilad. Kamash Milan, that also was there to keep the nuts fresh, and only after the nuts were eaten, now the klipos don't have the same usage, is considered to be a new entity, and that's also a problem to then use as your fire. Therefore, tzricha, we need all three cases to explain the machlokes between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda in regards to noilad. Explains the Gemara, V'hod Rav Yilav befeush itmar ela michlala itmar. That which we just quoted, Rabbi Yehuda saying in the name of Rav, was not heard by Rabbi Yehuda by Rav. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda did not hear Rav saying this, but rather he implied it for what Rav did. Explains the Gemara, the Rav ochel tamri. Rav during the week, during Chol, he ate dates. V'shoda kashyasa lebuchya, and then he threw the pits into the oven. Omar le Rav Chia. Rabbi Chia said to his comrade Rav, Bar Pachti. He calls Rav by the term Bar Pachti, the son of great ones. In other words, it's a term of endearment, which we saw already in the beginning of the Masechet on Daf Gimel Amud Beis, where he turns to Rav and says, Bar Pachti, don't ask Rebbe a question on a different Masechta when he's learning that Masechta, a different Masechta. It's not appropriate. Don't ask him on one Masechta when he's learning a different Masechta. Anyways, over here he says to Rav, Kinegdoi beyantif osir. The same thing, if you would be doing this now on Yantif, would be osir. It would be a problem of noilad. So from there, Rav Yehuda deduced that Rav holds indeed that this is noilad. Just like the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Ask the Gemara, questions this, Kibla minei or like Kibla minei? Did indeed Rav mekabel the words of Rabbi Chia or not? In other words, we saw on Daf Yutes Amud Beis that Rav does ascribe to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, the one who is machmir in regards to muktzah. When there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon in regards to muktzah, where generally Rabbi Yehuda is more machmir and Rabbi Shimon is more mekil, so we saw that Rav ascribes the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. But perhaps that's only in regards to regular muktzah, but in regards to noilad, that would be different. So the Gemara question and says, did Rav mekabel the words of Rabbi Chia and say that the pits of the date is noilad? Toshma, let's come and hear the following proof. The Chios Rav leBavel, when Rav came to Bavel, Ochel Tamri v'shoda kashyasa lechevasa. On Yom Tif, or on Shabbos, Rav ate the tmorim, the dates, and he threw the pits to animals. My la beparsiyasa v'lo kibla. Is it not talking about dates that are of good quality dates, Persian types of dates, where the flesh of the dates does not stay attached to the pits, and therefore he took the pits themselves and threw them to the animals, whereby he was not mekabel that this is a problem of noilad. Says the Gemara, lo ba'armiyasa, they were aramite types of dates. These were poor quality dates where the flesh, the fruit of the dates, did still be attached to the nuts, not to the nuts, to the pits. And therefore the pits, since they still had some of the flesh of their mother, so to speak, of the fruits of the dates on top of them, attached to them, therefore they're still considered to be chazi and not an issue of noilad or muktzah. Now ask the Gemara, Rav Shmuel bar Chana Rav Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, who does hold of noilad, the Omer masikin bekelim ve masikin beshivrei kelim. That which Rabbi Yehuda said that we can use kelim, complete vessels, for our fire, but shivrei kelim, if they broke on Yontif, cannot be used for a fire. Kiven da'alik behu purto havale shivrei kelim. He says, since once you take a kli, let's say it's a complete vessel, a kli sholem, a wooden kli, and you want to then use that for your fuel on Shabbos, on Yontif, for your fire. So you took the kli sholem and you put it into the fire. So soon thereafter it becomes a shever kli, because then it starts becoming burnt. And now on Yontif, when you want to then turn over the wood in order to make sure that the flame is stoked and remains a good fire so that you can go ahead and cook, then you're going to then be metaltil muktzah. So how can you do that according to Shita Rabbi Yehuda, even on a kli sholem? Answers the Gemara, the Ovad k'derab Masno, the Omar of Masno Marav. he did like Rav Masna. That Rav Masna said in the name of Rav the following: Eitzim shenishru min hadekel letanor b'yomtiv. If there are pieces of wood from a tree that fall into an oven on Yontif, which is muktzah, because they were on the tree before Yontif, and only now on Yontif are they falling from the tree, and they fall into this tanur, into this oven. Mar be'etzim muchanim umasikon. Then the eitzah is then to add eitzim that are muchanim, that were prepared before Yontif for hasaka, and then go ahead and then burn them together with those other eitzim that fell from the tree. So too over here, those eitzim that became shivrei kelim, so then put new ones in, and you can go ahead and mahapich it on in your oven to make sure that it's a good flame. Now the Gemara turns its focus back to our machlokes and our Mishnah in regards to whether the psilos that are psilos habeged shekiplo, the psilos, the wicks of the beged that were made into wicks, the machlokes in Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, whether it is tamei because it still remains a kli, or Rabbi Akiva rather, that says that it is no longer a kli, it's tohor. Says the Gemara to explain this machlokes. Rav Hamnuna Omar, Rav Hamnuna said, Hacha bepachois mishloisha al shloisha askinon. Our machlokes in our mission to Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva is speaking about when the beged that we're speaking about in this Mishnah of psilas habeged shekiplo v'lo yihivhavo is less than shlosha al shlosha tfochim. Umikuli matlonio shonu kan. And we're talking about when a person did a insignificant act, whereby that would take away, that would be mevatil the shem kli of the beged. Says the Gemara, va'ozda Rabbi Eliezer l'taimei, Rabbi Akiva l'taimei. Explains Rav Hamnuna and Rabbi Eliezer that says that it still remains a kli even after making them into psilos, the beged into a psila. Holds that its tamei still remains a kli. And Rabbi Akiva, who holds that it's Torah, it's no longer a kli, is the same machlokes on the following Mishnah. This nan. Pachos mishloisha al shloisha. If you have a beged less than 3 shloisha al shlosha tfochim, shehiskinu lepekoik boy es hamerchat, which was used to either put into a drain and keep the water so that it was stop up the drain. Ulenar boy es ha Kedera, or it was used, let's say, to be put underneath a pot and then pour into a kli, or lekaneach bois harechaim, it was used to clean the mill. All of these insignificant acts that might make this kli, therefore this beged, lose its shem kli. Bein min hamuchon, bein she'ein min hamuchon tamei divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says, no matter what it's going to be, tamei is going to retain its status as a kli, as a beged. Rabbi Yoshua Oimer, the opposite. Bei min hamuchan bin shen lo min hamuchan tor. It loses the same kli. Rabbi Akiva Oimer, min hamuchan. If it's min hamuchan, then it's tamei. If it's shalom min hamuchan tor, so he's like a middle opinion between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Akiva says if it's muchan, the Gemara is going to explain what muchan and eno muchan means. But if it's muchan, then it's like Rabbi Eliezer, it still retains its status as a beged, as a kli, and it's mekabel tuma. Whereas if it's lo min hamuchan, then it loses its status as a kli and it's tohor. Explains the Gemara. V'amar ula v'itema rabbe bar bar Chana v'yochanan. Hakol moedim, everybody agrees. In this mission that we just quoted, Zarku ba'ashba divra kol tor. If one takes that beged subsequently, after using it for one of these usages, and he throws it into the trash, certainly he no longer is interested in that beged, and that beged that's less than shlosha tefachim loses its status as a beged, as a kli, and for sure it's now tohor. It's not mekabel tuma. The other extreme, hinichu bekufsa, divra kol tamei. If a person rather instead afterwards using it for one of these insignificant, let's say insignificant usages, now puts it into a box, that means that his das is on that beged, and therefore it still retains its status as a beged. It doesn't then lose that status, and therefore it's mekabel tuma. So what is the machlokes? Explains the Gemara. Lo nechleku ella shetlo b'mogoid o shehnicho la'achrei hadeles. The machlokes between the Tanaim over here in this Mishnah is whether you take the beged subsequently and you put it, let's say, on a peg, or you put it behind a door. Then there's a machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Eliezer sovar midloi zarku ba'ashpa daita ilave. Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that as long as you didn't put it in the ashpa, in the trash, then you have das on the beged, and therefore it retains its status as a beged, and therefore it's mekabel tuma. Umay kori le shelo min hamuchan. So why did he say lo min hamuchan? What is it considered to be lo min hamuchan? He says only legabe kufso la muchanu. For everybody else, in respect to kufsa, when you don't put it into the kufsa, then it's considered to be not min hamuchan. But he himself holds, of course, that again, everything, so long as you put it in the trash, you'll still retain its status as a beged because your das is on that beged. Whereas Rabbi Yoshua is the opposite. Rabbi Yoshua savar mideloi hinichu bekufsa betule batle. That as long as you didn't put it into the kufsa, into a box, showing that you have das for this beged, everything short of that loses its status, and mevatel the status as a beged. If so, my kori le muchan. So what did he mean when he said muchan? The lagabe ashba muchanu. For everybody else, in regards to relative to ashba, it's muchan. But he himself, of course, holds that anything short of putting it into the kufta, into the box, again loses its status as a beged. Rabbi Akiva is now this in-between opinion. Rabbi Akiva betloi b'magoid. If you're going to then hang it on a hook, on a peg, then that's closer to putting it in a kufta, and that's considered to be muchan. And therefore, Savak Rabbi Eliezer, he holds like Rabbi Eliezer that the beged still retains its status as a beged and is mekabel tuma. But if you put it behind the door, that's closer to than putting it into an ashpa, and therefore it's no longer considered it's not considered to be muchan. And therefore, Savak like Rabbi Yoshua, he holds like Rabbi Yoshua, it loses its status as a beged and its tahor. And the Gemara says, Le'inyanenu, back to our inyan. V'hodar be Rabbi Akiva legabe Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Akiva was choizer boy to hold like entirely like Rabbi Yoshua, that even regards to if a person took the beged and put it onto a peg, still he says it's to lose its status as a beged, as a kli, and therefore it's tohor like Rabbi Yoshua. Anything short of putting it into the kufsa. So it says the Gemara, Mimai, from where do we learn? Where do we know that Rabbi Akiva was choizer boy and he goes like the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua? Answers the Gemara, Amarava midiktani psilas habeged. From the fact that our Mishnah teaches psilas habeged. Now our Mishnah taught that psilas habeged shekipla. If a person took the beged and he rolled it, he folded it into a psila, into a wick. So there's a machlokes, and it says over there that we're talking about a beged. Says the Gemara, my area, the Tani psilas habeged. Why is it that the Mishnah chooses to teach psilas habeged? The psila, which is a beged, lisni psila shel beged. Why didn't it teach that it's a psila, a piece of the beged that became the wick? My psilas habeged. What's meant by the psilas habeged in the Mishnah? Da'adayin begedhu. It's still a beged. It's a full beged, and nonetheless, even after the making into a wick, Rabbi Eliezer says it still retains its status as a beged, and therefore is mekabel tuma. Whereas Rabbi Akiva argues and says that it loses its status as a beged, and therefore it is tohor.